All right, welcome to the Corner Culture. Thoughts off the mainstream. This is Kalen, your boy, one and only owner, operator, and host of Corner Culture, and this is my lovely, beautiful wife, Yuri Yamazaki.
Hi.
I'm bringing her on the show today because what I want to do is actually talk about the crazy little fun experience that we've been having recently, and the saga is not even over yet, and that is getting your green card, which has been very challenging and difficult up to this point, to say the least.
Yes.
So, we'll do a video later where we're talking about the green card process, the details, and all of that, because the saga's not over yet, so I don't want to actually talk about that yet. But what I do want to talk about is kind of immigration more broadly, because there was a moment, I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was late last year, 2022.
Yeah.
Where somewhere in a conversation that we were having, I brought up, or it was brought up, illegal immigration that's happening in the southern border between Mexico.
You've been talking about it like the whole time, yes.
Okay, I wouldn't say that exactly, but I have mentioned it, I think, in the past. Mm-hmm. You know, yes. I wasn't sure if it was something that you were aware of, but yeah. Anyway, it came up, and I remember you going, "Wait, what?" And then I had explained to you, yeah, there are people from all over the Central and South America who are just coming up through Mexico, and they're just coming into the country, and they're getting in. And not only are they getting in, they're getting, there are reports that they're getting money, they're getting cell phones. They famously were sent to Martha's Vineyard, which is one of the nicest islands in the country. And I don't know what happened there, like if they stayed or if people put them up in their houses. I don't know where they ended up going, but they've been sent to New York. They've been put up in hotels, in addition to everything else I just mentioned. So did you get a cell phone? Did you get a monthly stipend when you came here?
No. Can you refresh my memory about this specific, incident or matter? Because I'm sure, wherever you are, in the world, there are always some people who are trying to cross the border.
Yeah.
And get in the new country.
Right.
Illegally.
Right.
Wherever you are. So what is this so different?
So it's different because the United States actually takes in more, not only legal immigrants than any other country, but we also take in more illegal immigrants knowingly than any other country. Many other countries, including Japan, where you're from, do not allow illegals to enter the country at all. And in fact, legals is very difficult, especially when you compare it to like the United States or even other European countries. It's extremely easy for people to immigrate, which I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm actually pro legal immigration, me personally. The issue I have is illegal immigration. And what I recall is in the conversation we had was that you were quite offended or like kind of insulted at the fact that people were able to enter the country illegally when you, for years, have been going through the process legally, spending the money, spending the time, reading the forms, researching the forms. It's not your native language, which doing these forms in English is extremely intimidating and difficult, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not like they make them in Japanese for you.
Yeah.
So, so what I wanted to really talk about was what you're aware. Basically, just tell me what your awareness is of it, especially outside of what you heard from me, because I'm more curious to know what you even were aware of before I told you anything. And then secondly, just kind of how you feel about it.
Okay, so let me just make sure that America, the United States, are now allowing illegal immigration.
Well, basically, the current administration, the Biden administration, their policy and their orders for the Customs and Border Patrol, who are actually patrolling the border to Mexico, basically the policy is that if you show up at the border, you got to wait there a little while. There's kind of a holding period, but they're essentially just letting people in. Something like 200,000 people a month are just coming in, and they're processing them, and they are checking them to make sure that they're not terrorists or anything like that. They're trying to find the criminals or any other illegal activity or things like that. But nonetheless, these people are desperate, and they are doing everything they can to try and get in, and they are being let in. And then once they're in the country, because they're being let in such massive amounts at a time, it takes forever for them to get processed, to go through the legal process. So they are given a court date where they have to show up and plead to the judge or whoever to allow them to stay in the country legally. That could take months or years before they even have a court date, and they're in the United States that whole time. And we don't really know who they are. We don't know if they are, let's say, are they worth it? Like, are they going to assimilate? Are they going to get jobs? Are they going to start to learn the language? The question really is, are they going to be good for the country? Are they going to be good for the country? We don't know that yet. They're coming in by the hundreds of thousands. And don't quote me on that number. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like either tens of thousands a month or hundreds of thousands a month now under the current administration. Whatever the number is, it's absurdly high and ridiculously higher than it's ever been, especially under Trump.
Okay. So then I want to define what is legal and illegal.
What you're doing is legal.
Yeah, but people are showing up at the border to go through some kind of a process for the securities to check them that they're not criminals or terrorists or anything like that. Well, isn't that a legal process?
I think there's a couple things. Good question. I think there's a couple things that happen. Number one, people actually do go through Customs and Border Patrol, and what they're doing, I think, in that situation is seeking asylum. And there is a process that we have where people can seek asylum because they may be coming from a country where they are politically persecuted. For example, like the Jews during Nazi Germany. The Jews obviously were allowed to enter the U.S. without question during that time because we knew they were being slaughtered. And so that is a reason to seek asylum usually is like there are people out to kill me. That's kind of the it's not the only reason, but it's certainly the most prominent probably.
Okay.
But the other reasons could be economic. So, for example, people from Venezuela, where the government is just printing their dollars into oblivion, they literally just have no chance at ever having a good life economically because they can never save money. They can never store their value anywhere. Yeah. So they will seek asylum a lot of times in another country, just on economic grounds. So there's that. Number two, though, is there are people who just cross the border. They don't interact with CBP. They try to avoid them and hide from them and run from them. There's a lot of that happening as well. So the figure that I quoted, that's like 200,000 a month. I'm not sure if that's illegals who are just completely going around CBP, or if it's these quasi-legals who are walking in illegally but going through CBP. Because you can't just walk into the country. That is illegal. Even if you are processed by CBP, technically not really legal. Like you're just walking in. No.
Yeah.
You need to go through the process. You have to go through the embassy. You have to get the visa. You have to, the process that you went through. They're not doing that. They're just walking in because they just so happen to share a land border with the country, which you don't have that privilege coming from Japan, an island nation. You have to fly here. So in order to fly here or boat here, you have to go through the legal process. It's impossible to get onto a boat or onto an airplane and then enter the U.S. illegally. Like it's not the 70s, it's not the 60s. You can't do that anymore. Okay. So to answer your question, that I think there's kind of a lot going on.
Yeah. So you described two things, and the second one sounds more like illegal.
That's like fully illegal. Yes.
Immigration, and That is not fair. That's for sure.
That's what I remember you saying the first time.
Yeah,
You were
that
like,
is not
"That's not fair."
That is not fair. But at the same time, I have experience, and I've been experienced with this all the money and time and processes that I'm taking. It is understandable that people try to avoid those things. I came with F1 student visa, and then I switched to H1B. I'm on H1B currently. That was
Hey,
specifically.
sorry to interrupt. Just for people out there who don't know anything about legal immigration, how much money did it cost you just to get your F1 visa so you could come and study in the U.S.? I know the answer if you don't.
I don't remember. Probably like less than 1,000, I guess.
Yeah,
It's somewhere between 500 to 1,000.
yeah, depending on the country because they're all different. Anywhere from $500 to $800 to just to get your F1 visa. That's not flights. That's not the cost of your embassy that you have to go to and meet with them and prove to them that you're not intending to stay here when you come here because it's called a student exchange program, SEVP, student exchange visitor program. When you're done with your student visa, you're supposed to go home. That's the whole point. Okay, so that was almost $1,000. Then you went on OPT, occupational practical training.
Yes.
And so that allows you, once you graduate, to work within the field that you studied at the United States. How much was that?
About 500, 400, something
Yeah, it was
like that.
$410 currently. It's going to go up to
460.
460.
I think.
Yeah, so that's the I-765 for OPT. So, okay, that was the second thing you had to do to extend your stay here. Then you applied for a work visa, H-1B work visa.
Yeah.
That is a 1-year work visa. Or 2
That
years?
is for 3 years.
3 years, okay. Yeah. How much did that cost? Well,
without a lawyer.
Right, and by the way, you did all of this without a lawyer. She did all of this without a lawyer, read all the paperwork herself, printed all the paperwork, read the forms that are the instructions to the form, which every form, if you don't know it, with USCIS and other immigration bureaus in the U.S., they have an instruction form, which is usually 4 to 5 times longer than the form itself because it's got to explain every single box. And so she not only read the forms, she read the instructions. Probably you didn't read all of them, but you read a lot of them, especially when you didn't know like what the heck is this for. So yeah, you did all of that on your own, no lawyer fees whatsoever. This is bare bones minimum cost for this sort of thing. And how much was the H-1B in total, you think?
I think it was around 2,500 to 3,000.
2,500 to 3,000.
Yes.
Yeah. So
without a lawyer.
Yeah.
Without premium processing.
Yeah. Right. And then there's that too. So right now we're looking at approximately, let's just say 2,000 plus 2,500. So let's be conservative here. $4,000 just to get to where you're at now. Now we're applying for the green card because we've been married since October of last year. So how much was that?
If you have no issues since you entered the United States, then that would be less than 2,000.
Yeah, for us it was actually over 2,000 because we filed an I-601 because we were told that she was not here legally for a short period of time due to COVID. We later found out that is not the case because in our marriage, any previous status violations prior to that are forgiven due to the marriage, which we did not know at the time of filing the green card the first time. So we spent, I think, $2,500 for the green card the first time.
Yes.
It would have been, without the I-601, it would have been 19 something, right?
Like
1950. So we'll just call it $2,000. Okay, so now we're up to $6,000. No lawyer fees, no premium processing. This doesn't include paper and ink. I saw your H-1B. I helped you with the H-1B. That thing was at least the thickness of a ream of paper that she had to ship to USCIS in a box because there is no envelope or package that can carry that much paper. It has to go in a box. Yeah, so that doesn't include any of those ancillary fees in addition to just the form fees, which is goes straight to the government, to the IRS. So yeah, just to put it in perspective, that's how much money she's spending. That's how much time you're spending, hours and hours and hours, days and days doing all this work to avoid paying a lawyer fee, which is exorbitantly expensive. And then you learn, wait, people are getting in here for free, and they're just, because they share a land border, they're taking advantage of that privilege and just walking into the country. And at first, you said that's not fair.
That's not fair. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I sidetracked quite heavily from the I'm not fair point. So please go back to that.
No, I was saying that it is not fair for sure, but it is understandable because I've been going through all the forms, money, time. It's not days. It's years. It's been years. I've been dealing with forms and USCIS processing for years, 10 years now. From the start.
Yeah.
If you count from the start.
You haven't spent that entire time doing that.
No, but...
I'm just trying to accumulate all of the hours that you've actually spent on the forms. It's at least weeks. The total number of hours that you actually had your eyeballs on a form and you were working on a form or researching a form, reading the instructions on a form, printing the god dang forms, driving the forms to UPS and shipping them off. All those hours combined is, in my estimation,
months.
Weeks. Yeah, okay.
Months.
Yeah,
Months
weeks. So,
years.
yeah, it certainly easily could become months that you worked on that. Yep. So anyway, what else came to your mind when you learned that people were just walking across the border?
Well, I don't know. That's the first thing I thought about.
But how did you feel? What was the real feel? What was the emotion that you experienced?
The emotion, to be honest, I didn't really care.
You don't care?
No.
Okay. I got a different impression from the conversation we had, but go on.
I don't remember that conversation.
I remember it vividly because at the time I was pretty upset that this immigration thing was happening. And I was very acutely aware of your reaction at the time. That was fresh on my mind. But anyway, go ahead. So you don't recall that you really cared, and you certainly don't really care so much now.
No, I don't. No.
Okay.
I cannot care about them because I have to take care of myself.
I mean, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. That's been a big lesson of mine as of late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and like I said, it's not fair, but it's understandable.
Yeah, it's understandable.
And then, but if you ask me if I would do the same thing if I have an opportunity, I would say no, because that's gonna hurt my pride and dignity. So I wouldn't do that.
That's actually, you bring up a good point there, is kind of the legality issue. Do you think that it's good for a country to let people enter in when the whole premise in which they entered the country is illegal, is against the law?
Well, I can't say yes and no. It's not that simple, I don't think. Like you described earlier, if there's a circumstance that you're about to be killed if you stay in your country, then well, sure.
But if you're about to be killed, there is a legal process for that. So
what if you cannot wait for that?
Well, I believe that process is I don't know for a fact. I obviously haven't gone through it, but I'm assuming that process is designed in such a way that they know full well that if you're about to be murdered by some regime that's taken over your country, that you need to get out of there rapidly, and you need to go elsewhere very quickly. And I'm pretty sure there's a legal process for that. I mean, I just think about like recently the Ukrainians that were fleeing war. They got the hell out of there very quickly and into other countries very quickly. I don't see why the U.S. would be any different. And to my knowledge, I'm not aware that anything illegal was happening in this process. Every country on the border, every NATO country especially, was, I'm pretty sure, going like, yeah, come in. Like, we know what's going on. We don't want you to die from the war either. So come on in. I'm pretty sure the U.S. has the same stance there. Like I remember when I was a kid in high school, there were a ton of Bosnians that ended up in Boise, Idaho, where I'm from, and they were in my high school because they were fleeing the Yugoslavian war that was happening. I think it was Bosnia and Yugoslavia. I might be wrong on that, but I know the Bosnian kids at my school were their families fled war, and they ended up in the U.S. to get out of that. So I know there's some kind of process. Is my point. So I don't think it would be illegal in the instance that
You're saying there's some kind of a quick process.
I'm pretty sure. I would be willing to bet. I'd have to look this up. I don't know for a fact. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean that's the whole point of it. Is like, yeah, my life is in danger. I gotta go now. So I don't think it's illegal in that instance. But also in most of those instances, you don't share a land border with the U.S. And so in order for you to enter the U.S., it has to be legal, because you have to boat here or fly here, and there's no other choice. You can't walk here. You know what I mean? That's the only way that this illegal immigration is happening in the U.S. now, is because we share a land border, and people got legs and feet, and they can walk. Especially if they're desperate enough. That's the issue. That's the difference. Let me put it that way. So anyway, back to the, to me, if you're entering the U.S. illegally, like, it sets a bad precedent. Number one, it's not fair, as you mentioned, and I'm sorry, but like, if you're going to enter a country illegally, like violating the law, what other laws are you going to violate when you're here? It's not. It doesn't set a good precedent. It doesn't set a good example for everybody else. And not only that, but like, if you're going to enter the country illegally and violate the law, then what the fuck is the point of the laws? Why do we have the laws?
Yeah, so I was going to point out, if that's legal or illegal, definition of illegal and illegal. I asked you earlier and you described two things. So, yeah, if the U.S. is letting people in, then what's the point of security, CBP,
right,
at the border?
I mean, I guess other than making sure that it's not terrorists bringing in a nuclear weapon, other than that, it's basically like, yeah, come on in. Basically anybody can roll in. And the other thing that people, I think, are really missing from this whole thing, my mom's a perfect example of this. She was like, well, they should just come in. They should just come in. And I was going like, and I made the point, and she laughed in my face, of, well, kids are really suffering from this. Not only are they being dragged across a desert, which is insanely dangerous, but they're running into the cartel. And the cartel and people associated with the cartel, or at the very least, are at the same human decency level of the cartel, are shuttling the coyoteing, or are human trafficking people across the border. When they go through the border illegally, there's no record of where these people are. There's no way to track them down and know who they are. Their identity is basically empty. When you enter a country that you're not registered in, you're not from, you don't have a birth record, now you're in this country, you're completely anonymous. So it's very easy for you to slip into illegal prostitution, child sex. But when I brought that up to my mom, she laughed in my face. Oh, that's not happening. And I was like, how do you know? And here's the real funny thing, and this is my mom, but and she knows what I'm talking about. Literally like 10 minutes later, she was like, did you know that in Los Angeles, it's the biggest child sex trafficking location in the country? And I was like, really? What? Well, why do you think that is? You think maybe it has something to do with kids who are extremely vulnerable, families who are extremely vulnerable, being shuttled across the border by coyotes who do not have a care in the world about human life. You know what I mean? And they're just out to make a buck. And if they make more money by pushing these people, these vulnerable people that the government doesn't even know they're here, into some kind of human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking industry, and they're going to get paid more for it, then of course they're going to do that. Of course they're going to do that. So that's the other big component to this thing for me personally. And I'm sorry to be talking about it, my issue. This is really supposed to be more about you, but you were just kind of like, no, I'm a first grader. I'm a first grader when it comes to this political, social topic. So
Yeah, and then it is good to learn many point of view, and not only for me, for listeners too, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. I did want to get your perspective on this whole thing. I guess another question that kind of comes to my mind is, and maybe you're not aware of this, but I'm curious. People from Japan, in your estimation, what you understand, what like if you were to think about what Japanese people think in total, which I know is a hard question, a hard thing to ask, but just do your best. What do you think Japanese people, or even Asian people in general, what do they think about, or what would they think most likely about the illegal immigration situation in the U.S.? If they were to learn what I just told you now, what do you think they would think? What do you think they would say about it?
They would strongly disagree with the illegal immigration, yes. But at the same time, like me, they're kind of wouldn't care about that so much.
Yeah.
If you're not into political, social things, you wouldn't care about that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I'm all out of questions. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so you pointed out that if the U.S., if America just started letting people in, because of no registration, no record history of who they are, where they are, all the stuff, and therefore they're going to be human trafficking or child abuse.
It's like
or
they have a
sexual.
high likelihood of, or a higher likelihood of going into that industry. Yes.
Is there any strength, or I would say benefits for America?
To have people enter in.
So that's a negative point. Is there any positive point?
Well, so yes, I mean, look, I'm an Austrian economist. I don't know, I know you probably don't know what that means exactly, but I'm a Friedman, Sol, Hayek. The names are escaping me at the moment. Rothbard. I'm a Mises Austrian economics person. I think that their idea of how economies around the globe should work are the best, and they argue vehemently that immigration should just be free and flowing from country to country, and for reasons of basically like open market competition. If one country is doing a better job at providing, what is needed for quality of life for people, you should be able to freely enter that country and make a life for yourself and your family. Additionally, they argue a lot that countries should basically, they should do what they're best at and then export and import the rest. They should export what they're best at and import what they're not best at. So, for example, if I am the United States and I'm really damn good at making steel, and I can pump out a crap ton of steel, high quality, really fast and real cheap, that's what I should be exporting, and I should be making money to do that. But you know what I suck at? I suck at making yarn. I suck at making clothes and threads and stuff. I just suck at it. But this country over here across the Pacific, India, is really, really good at it. So I import that. That's the idea, kind of the idea of the Mises or Austrian economics. I'm really, really dumbing it down, so I apologize to anybody out there who's going like pulling their hair out at how much of a dumbed down version this is. So my belief is that the overall economic benefit of people coming in is good. You want people to come into the country. However, this comes with massive caveats. Number one, they need to go through a legal process, and they need to be vetted. It needs to be determined that they are, in fact, on the good end of the scale that they're going to bring to the country, because it's not always the case, and it's a case-by-case basis. So there needs to be that process, and we have that process. It's a legal immigration process. It's the process you're going through right now. Mm-hmm. It's the process that says, is this person going to be good for this country net overall? That's the process. You're married So obviously you're doing something right. You came here, you got married, right? That's kind of the point of the marriage thing is like, well, hey, they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, they're going to spur economic activity. That's what's good for a country. That's a government. That's what they want. So there has to be that process where we determine, are you good or are you bad? If you're bad, sorry, try again next time. No. And here are some things that could mark you down as bad. Are you going to assimilate? Okay? Culture matters. And Japan knows this better than anybody. Culture matters. And France is experiencing this right now. I don't know if you're aware, but there's crazy cultural upheaval in France going on right now. And there's absolute chaos going on right now. A lot of it is fueled by cultural differences and cultural tensions from all the immigration that happened in France over the last several years, namely from Syria, I believe Syria. So, and not just Syria, many other places as well. So culture matters. And so that's another thing they need to test for. Are you going to assimilate? Does your culture hold the same values that we have in this country? Hard work ethic, individual self-responsibility. Are you going to come here and just suck on the system because you believe that you're a victim and everything should be handed to you? If so, that's not good. You need to go. If you're going to come here and you're going to work hard and you're going to start your own business and you're going to generate activity and you're going to have kids and you're going to make life better for everybody around you, hell yeah, come on in. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care any of that stuff. The point is, are you good for the country? I experienced this on the cruise ship. The question was, are they good for the ship? Are they good for the boat? Are they bringing good vibes or bad vibes? People that brought bad vibes, they didn't last long on the boat because they know you can't have bad people on the boat. That toxicity spreads rapidly, and you got to get rid of the source of the toxicity. And I saw it happen so many times. They knew this, especially on smaller boats. I was on small boat, and you got to really protect the zeitgeist on a small boat because it's just small. There's only so many people. So. It's the same thing for a country. Obviously, 330 plus million people is a little bit of a different situation than a cruise ship, but the principle still applies. You need to make sure that whoever's coming in is good for the country. That's the point. So anyway, to answer your question.
Okay. Then the problem, I guess, is the time and money. Why does it take so long to legally enter the United States? And why does it take so much cost to enter the United States?
Great question. Yeah, why is that? I mean, I don't know for a fact, but my opinion is, after working 2 years as a SevP official for a music school where I was the gatekeeper for international students to enter that school, and also I was the gatekeeper that allowed them to go and study on OPT once they graduated, and after my experience with you, H-1B visa and a green card application, which is still pending, my assessment is that the federal bureaucracy that we have in this country is out of control. It is absolutely way too freaking big. There are too many forms. There are too many rules. There are too many. The forms cost as much as they do because they have to fund the operation. And the operation is massive. And of course, it's totally underfunded, even though the funding goes up every year. It's underfunded because they can't pay people enough to do this kind of work because it's shitty work. It's no fun. Nobody wants to do this kind of work. And anyway, so that's my personal opinion. We need to like just make it simple. We need to make the rules just way simple and just overhaul the laws entirely and just make it more like, oh, you're married? Cool. You're done. Oh, you had a baby? Cool, you're in. But we can't do that unless we enforce the laws that begin in the first place, the ones especially at the border. So like you can't just walk into the country and have a baby and go like, hey, I'm in. Like, no, you need to have a reason to come in, and you need to establish that first. But we need to simplify the process massively, as you and I both are experiencing.
Okay. But if we make the system so simple, I'm going to ask this because I know that it is very complicated. There are many forms, many policies, and I had to read a bunch of policies and what if this was this, what if that was this. Many cases on the USCIS website. So I know that it is very complicated, and the forms are prepared for many kind of cases, many type of people, many type of work, and all the stuff. But I'm not sure making it so simple, if we could, making it so simple is gonna help people working at USCIS or any immigration office, any government.
Why should they benefit? Why should the USCIS officer benefit? The law is not meant for them. It's meant for the people and or immigrants. See what I'm saying? Like, why should they be a beneficiary?
Oh, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, I mean, like, it is complicated now, and it that's the field that that's the field that I'm feeling. But it's complicated. That's why people work so hard to try to solve the issue.
Well, sure, it's complicated, but I think it's complicated because we've made it complicated.
So complicity is not related to how people work.
If I understand what you're saying correctly, related to the way people work. Well, I think it's related to the way government works. The complexity is related to the way government works, if that's what you mean.
Okay, so if we make it simple, then because it's simple, people work less.
Oh, you mean the amount of work that people do to attempt to immigrate?
Yes, and if there's any issue, try to solve the issue. We try to solve the issue.
Sure.
Right? But, and then if we make it simple, and then if the system and process is simple, and then we can, people can immigrate easily, then good, legally,
Right.
then that's good. That's good for us. But if there are so many, while there are so many people trying to immigrate to the United States, and then the system and the process is so simple, then that's gonna decrease the amount of work that people make, or
Sure.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's what I'm asking.
you're kind of talking about the supply demand effect of simplifying the rules for USCIS. So in other words, like, the forms cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and it requires weeks and weeks of time for you to do them. So it's very difficult. So not everybody's going to do that, right? So, but see, that's kind of the point, that the issue that I have. So there's I forget what it's called, but I think it's called the Laffer curve in economics, which is the peak of the curve where between, if I remember correctly, it's between the unemployment rate and the interest rates. So like if you increase the interest rates, you decrease employment. But if you decrease the interest rate, you increase employment. But there's this point on the curve where it's the optimum, where you reach the equilibrium point between these two things. The same thing happens with supply demand. There's an equilibrium point. And the same thing happens with, oh shoot, I just lost it. I had another great example where this phenomenon occurs, where there is taxes. Yeah. There's an equilibrium point where when you raise the taxes too much, people just either figure out how to not pay their taxes, or they leave the country entirely. But if you lower it too much, well, then they're not paying enough because the tax rate's so low. So there's that equilibrium point where you have the most optimum setting so that you collect the most amount of taxes that you can, but you don't cause everybody to flee the country.
They need to be balanced.
Yeah, there needs to be a balance. So I get what you're describing, as far as I'm understanding what you're saying, is there is an equilibrium point between the amount of work and money required to immigrate to the country legally, where if you're below that point, then the demand is going to skyrocket because it's so easy to apply. So there's going to be just an absolute F ton of people applying to immigrate to the U.S. But if you go beyond that point, which is where I think we are, which is way too far beyond that point, it's way too costly and way too expensive. What you end up doing is incentivizing people to enter the country illegally, because now people from Mexico, Central and South America, Southeast Asia, parts of Africa, it is absurdly costly. It is impossibly costly for them to enter the U.S. legally. So their only option is to enter illegally. So by pushing that work requirement that you're talking about too high above the equilibrium point, we're actually incentivizing illegal activity. That's another reason why I think simplifying the process and bringing it down would actually incentivize people to go through the legal process. And so you don't have to share a land border with the country in order to immigrate here. You have to prove that you're a good person. You have to prove that you can do good things for this country, and that you're going to assimilate, and you're going to be a cultural benefit as opposed to a cultural detriment to this country. And whether cultural, economic, doesn't matter. Like, you just have to prove that you're going to be good to this. If there is a process where people even have a shot at the door, because they're not priced out of that market entirely, then it's going to eliminate the black market where people are just entering in illegally. That's my opinion on the work required, and why simplifying the process would be a net benefit for us. Then also what we can do, if we have, like, just imagine we lower the requirements, so now it's easier to apply, so now the applications just skyrocket. Well, now, but because the process is so much easier, we can make the rules simpler. So it's like, how much money do you make? What skills do you got? Do you have a family, and do you have kids? What religion are you? What are your values? Like, we can do more. We can do just easy. You could do a really easy test that's like no more difficult than just filling out a form and answering some questions. Like, how well do you speak the language? How much time do you spend studying the language? How much do you know about the government? How much do you know about the United States government and the history? These kind of things could be really easy to just implement. And then boom, like, oh, you got 100% on this test, or this, I'm talking about the package in total with all these different things considered. But like, oh, you scored really high on this. You're in. Come on in. Welcome. Like, come be an American. But then, oh, you scored below whatever, XY threshold. Oh, well, you're gone. Try again next time. Now you know what you got to work on. But now there's no incentive to do this illegally, because, hey, I can at least apply. Hey, I can at least give this a shot. I have, and I know what to work for now. Like, even if you get rejected, you can tell these people, like, these are the things. These are the things you failed at. These are the reasons why you were rejected. So work on these things. If you really want to enter the U.S., get these things in order, and then you can come on in. No problem. That's just my personal opinion, but what the hell does that matter, right? You see what I'm saying, though?
Yes, I know what you're saying. What I was saying was a little off topic, I guess. And
that's okay.
It wasn't.
These are thoughts off the mainstream, so a little off topic is totally fine.
No, it was not the question that I was asking.
Yeah, I tend to do that a lot. Sorry.
It's just it was just my opinion that it was just my opinion. It wasn't even a question, I guess. I just feel like if we simplify the policy and the process of the immigration, then I don't know if that's if people at the immigration office or border would work hard.
Yeah, speaking of officers at the border, we had a great experience where she had to renew her I-94, which, if you don't know what that is, an I-94 is basically just a document that says you entered the U.S. That's all it is. It's just like, you entered the U.S. I-94, boom, timestamp, passport number, whatever, like identifying factors, boom. You can even go online and find your I-94 if you ever need it for any reason. Like the students at my school needed it all the time for various reasons.
Anytime.
So she had to renew her I-94 because if your I-94 expires, you're technically out of status inside the U.S., right?
That's what they told me.
That's what we were told. So in order to renew it, you either have to go home to your home country, which in Japan, round-trip flights is like $2,000, so that's not happening, not right now. And so the only other option was leave the country and come back. And so we live in LA right now, and my mom lives in San Diego, so we were like, I guess we're taking a trip to Tijuana, baby. So we went we went to Tijuana. We turned right around and got in line to come back in the US. We were sitting in my car for hours waiting.
Was it your car? I think that was my car.
Or your car. Right. It was your car.
Not a big deal, though.
Sitting in your car for hours, waiting and just inching with 4 or 5 other lanes of cars next to us, all just cars, engines running, just sitting in lane, just inching every few minutes down this long road, this bridge, this thing to get back to Tijuana. And then we get to the border. And of course, she's got a unique situation because of the whole COVID thing that happened. She was out of status and she had to renew all this garbage and blah, blah, blah. And she has to explain this story to every single officer that comes up to us and says, okay, wait, what's going on? Because, of course, the first officer is like, I don't know, I got to take it up with the boss. The boss comes in, they're like, okay, what's the story? She explains it again. They're like, okay, I got to go bring in the next head honcho. And then next thing you know, she's being escorted into the CBP building in Tijuana.
In the office, yes.
And you have to meet with, what was her name? The greatest. Hambrick.
Yes. The officer Hambrick. She was a nice lady.
Brick. I've never heard this name in my life. When she came back in the car to tell me this name, I was like, either I'm mishearing you or this is a joke. And she was like, no, ham like pork, brick like house. Hambrick. What? Anyway, you met with Hambrick, and Hambrick was like, okay, and then stamped your passport, and then you were good to go, right? Yeah. So it all worked out eventually, but it took not only the freaking car ride, but when we got to CBP, we that took like another 30 minutes at least, just explaining to them what was going on.
Yeah, and what frustrates me is I know...
You know the law better than they do.
Yeah, I know. I know that I know what I'm doing better than them. I mean, of course, but to my perspective, they're the officer. You know, in terms of the position and title,
they're supposed to know more than you.
Yeah,
but they don't.
They don't, and then the level that they don't know is like a first grader, kindergarten. So,
oh man,
I have to explain the law and what I've been going through, like to the first grader.
Yeah,
like 6-year-old girl.
Yeah, my favorite part of that whole experience was you arguing with the second or third CBP guy that came over, and you were like telling him, and he was like, no, and you were like, yes, and then it turned out you were right, you were correct, and he was wrong. And by the way, if anyone wants any proof of how much paperwork is required for all this stuff, all of this paperwork right here, this is just some of it. This is just some of the paperwork that she's been working on with regard to her green card. So, and that doesn't include the H-1B and the OPT and the F-1 visa. Like, doesn't even include any of it. So, yeah, it's kind of sad that somebody that comes through the immigration process legally, such as yourself, doesn't hire a lawyer to take care of everything for you. You do all the hard work yourself. You end up actually knowing more about the law. You know more about the policy. You know more about the process than even the officer who's supposed to be enforcing these rules at the border.
Yes, and then they act like the first grader acts like I don't know, king.
Yeah, he had an ego. He had an ego, and he thought for sure he knew what was going on. And I'm proud of you because you did not back down, and you were like, no, I know what this is for sure. And you fought your way up until you could speak with Hambrick, and she agreed with you. Hambrick was like, yep, you're right. Stamp, out you go. So, yeah, no, it's a good point. Well, anyway, look, we could talk about this forever, but however long this video has been rolling, it's been too damn long. So
yes, I've been trying to ask you.
Cheers. We got our drinks here, so cheers to being on the Corner Culture. Thanks for being my first official guest.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's right.
Thank you for having me. That's what.
There you go. Good job. Still learning the American English mannerisms and all that good stuff. All right. Well, thanks, babe. Corner Culture, thoughts off the mainstream. Hope you all enjoyed this. I'm going to clip it up and do some other stuff like that too. So anyway, peace out, y'all.